All right, friends, good morning. Happy Sabbath. We're about to start. Waiting on Miss Annie to come. Please turn your hymnals to hymn 189. Hymn 189. All that thrills my soul. Hymn 189. Greg, can you just get Miss Annie there in the back? She's talking to Diana there. Yeah. Good morning, brother. Hymn 189. Hymn 189. I don't see our Sabbath school teacher just yet. He's here? Who can cheer their heart like Jesus? By his presence all divine. True and tender, pure and precious. Oh, blessed to call him mine. All that thrills my soul is Jesus. He is more than life to me. And the fairest of 10,000 in my blessed Lord I see. Love of Christ so freely given, grace of God beyond degree, mercy higher than the heavens, deeper than the deepest sea. All that thrills my soul is Jesus. He is more than life to me. And the fairest of 10,000 in my blessed Lord I see. Every need his hand supplying, every good in him I see. On his strength divine relying, he is all in all to me. All that thrills my soul is Jesus. He is more than life to me. And the fairest of 10,000 in my blessed Lord I see. By the crystal's flowing river, with the ransom I will sing, and forever praise and glory for the King. All that thrills my soul is Jesus. He is more than life to me. And the fairest of 10,000 in my blessed Lord I see.
Well, happy Sabbath. today we'll continue studying about Joshua. And the memory text is from Zechariah 9. And the lesson says Zechariah 9, verse 12, but I'd like to read Zechariah verses 9 through 12. So Zechariah 9, verse 9 through 12. Says, Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, thy king cometh unto thee. He is just and having salvation, lowly and riding upon an ass, and upon the colt of the foal of an ass. And I will cut off the chariot from Ephraim, and the horse from Jerusalem, and the battle bow shall be cut off, and he shall speak peace unto the heathen. And his dominion shall be from sea even to sea, from the river even to the ends of the earth. As for thee also, by the blood of thy covenant, I have sent forth thy prisoners out of the pit wherein is no water. Turn you to the stronghold, ye prisoners of hope. Even today do I declare that I will render double unto thee. So what's that about? Zechariah chapter 9, verse 9 to 12.
It's a promise
Yeah.
that God is going to restore to us double.
Mm-hmm. And that was a prophecy of about Jesus too, right? Coming King of Zion. It has a heading in this Bible. And the memory text was especially 9 verse 12. Turn you to the stronghold, ye prisoners of hope. Which stronghold is Jesus, of course. So today we will be looking at how the land of promise in the time of Joshua, and what we can learn from that about promises God makes for us. The Israelites were promised the land of Canaan, the promised land, and we have promises as well. We have promises that God gives us, and promises of heaven, and promises of a life with Jesus that is better than any life we can have here, or any life without Jesus. In Joshua, it says chapters 13 to 21. If you read Joshua, it has long lists of borders, like this and that tribe will have borders from this city to this city to this city to that city to this lake to this place, and like all these detailed borders, and like several chapters, like chapters 13 to 21, like a long list of all these tribes and all these borders. So why do they have all those details there, do you think?
They're boundaries.
Boundaries, yeah.
Yeah. If we go all the way back to Deuteronomy, when God set up the boundaries, which are the borderlines, He actually gave them a command that says that your neighbors should not even move those boundaries. So I don't know what the full purpose is, why God had those borders, but the one thing we know is that we are not allowed to move them, right? So I think God wanted a separation of the people, and we know that the first rule of heaven is order. So I think it's just part of God's character here, that He would also have order in how He aligned out the land.
All right, anyone else?
Boundaries identify each tribe that we set it up. Why did He give one tribe boundaries?
Yeah, there were a few things they brought out in the lesson here about that. One was just simply making it concrete, like this is the actual land that you have. It's not something vague, not something. I mean, it was a definite promise of like this is going to be your portion. This is going to be your portion. And he made it very, very real for them that it was actual piece of land that he was giving them. And if you think about it, God defines borders a lot. Like, I mean, those are borders. I mean, the borders and boundaries are important. Even I heard someone say about the Ten Commandments that they're like boundaries. They're like borders. Like, thou shalt not kill is like, that's the border. That's the that's the outside border. You don't go outside of that. But what's in the center? The center is life. Like, to preserve life, promote life is really the aim of that commandment, and same with other commandments. And same for us. I mean, we have promises, and the promises God gives to us are not just vague promises, and but they're promises, like they're definite as well. Let's go to Sunday. There we have Eden and Canaan, borders, like promised land of Canaan, but then also Eden was also a portion of land that God gave someone. What can we learn about the Garden of Eden and how Adam and Eve were given that part in the Garden of Eden, and then after sin, they could no longer be inside of that country. So if you could read Genesis 2:15, and someone else could read Genesis 3, verse 17 to 24. Genesis 2:15 and chapter 3, verse 17 to 24.
Then Yahweh God took the man and set him on the Garden of Eden, cultivated and eat.
Yeah.
Okay, I have 3:17 to 24.
Mm-hmm.
And unto Adam he said, because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, thou shalt not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for thy sake. In sorrow thou shalt eat of it all the days of thy life. Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of thy face shalt thou eat bread, till thou return unto the ground, for out of it was thou taken, for dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return. And Adam called his wife's name Eve, because she was the mother of all living. And unto Adam also, and to his wife, did the Lord God make coats of skins and clothe them. And the Lord God said, behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil. And now, lest he put forth his hand, and take also of the tree of life, and eat, and live forever. Therefore the Lord God sent him forth from the Garden of Eden, to till the ground from whence he was taken. So he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubims, and a flaming sword, which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life.
All right, so there could be boundaries that we're inside of, and there could be boundaries that we're outside of. And so what can we learn from those verses? 2:15. And like when the Israelites came into the land of Canaan, did they just come in and everything was just theirs right away? No, there was like they had something to do when they came into the land of Canaan, and like they had, I mean, during the time of Joshua, they they had multiple conquests. They took over several portions of land, but there were also many parts of the country that were still not conquered, that they still had to conquer. And so even when they got these divisions of land, not everything inside of those borders was conquered yet, and so they still had something to do. And in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve had something to do as well. What did it say they had to do in Genesis 2:15? They were keepers of it, like they were
Stewards.
yeah, they were stewards. They it said in your verse it said cultivated, to cultivate and keep it. And then what did they do? What happened when they did not follow what God told them? Because he told them to cultivate and keep it, but then he also said something that they should not do. There's a tree that they should not take of. Right. And so when they did not follow him, then they could no longer be there.
And Brother Hans,
Yeah.
I think it's also fair to say where that flaming sword was also a border.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It was a border, yeah.
It was a border,
Yeah,
and they weren't allowed to go beyond that.
Right.
I think also, describing the borders, always think of the Old Testament as a picture. Heaven, Christ is describing heaven, the New Jerusalem. It's on the outside.
Yeah. Yeah, Michael.
Just as I go see evidence of the Trinity too in verse 22. He said like one of us, but he was just, David sitting there talking to the angel or his name, but Yahweh said, behold, the man that will become like one of us.
Mm-hmm.
I get this guy forward.
Yeah.
Hans, before you move on, it's also important to point out that 400 years had elapsed between the promise that God made to Abraham and the arrival of the Israelites into the promised land.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long time. And if you break that down into generations, that is roughly around 16 generations had passed. And so, if I were to ask the question this morning, how many of us know anything about our families, our blood families now? 5 to 8 generations. Many of us wouldn't be able to tell,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, my point is that it would have been easy for the Israelites to forget what God had promised to them, right? So Abraham was long, they could have ignored it, but the point is that God's promise was from one generation all the way through, and once he makes that promise, it's there for all generations. It is going to happen.
Yeah. That border there, did it mean, like, did Adam and Eve have any hope? Like, they were shut out. I mean, they could easily thought, like, they were hopeless, like they were shut out from the Garden of Eden. They would never be able to experience anything like that again. They could easily think that, but did they have any hope of things getting better again? Yeah. Dan?
The Shekinah glory was still there.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That's where they went to worship.
Yeah, right.
That's where they offered their sacrifices.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where they got hope.
Mm-hmm.
Right there, because God was right there with them.
And when they came there, they could also remember, like, inside of Garden of Eden as well.
And plus,
Yeah, yeah,
don't forget Genesis 3:15.
yeah, exactly. Uh-huh.
They had to have a lot of hope after you wrote Genesis 3:15.
Yeah. Promise of a Savior. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to bring up also what this particular lesson is presenting to us, both good and evil,
Yeah.
were promised. But I think it's reminding us that the promise
Right.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
the Lord is one says the Lord is the earth is the Lord's and all its fullness, the world and those who dwell therein.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the land, pointing out in our lesson this week, the land is an identity with us with the Lord. And even them, even if they were able to enter Canaan, when they disobeyed, they were taken away.
Yeah.
They were like for 7 years to get back to that. So I think that's an important point there that it is conditional on obedience in that. That's why
Yeah.
they were sent out. But still God is there for us and for us to decide.
Yeah, like you said, the land of Canaan was very important for the identity of the Israelites, like as a nation. That they were slaves before, but this was like having that land. It was important for their identity as a nation. And then also, as we'll get into that later in the lesson too, but just like Adam and Eve were cast out of the Garden of Eden, the Israelites were cast out of the land of promise later as well, right? And they weren't taken captive in Babylon, but even there was a promise. They were not left without a promise. They were promised that His people would return to the land, and
I don't know if you're going to bring this out. I don't want to jump ahead of you, but it's also extremely important to know the attitude of the patriarchs towards the promised land, their mindset towards it, right? They didn't have any permanent structure, right? They were living in tents. Why? Even though God told them that this land, Canaan, is flowing with what?
milk and honey.
It's flowing with milk and honey. I mean, you would think that, man, they would want to live in this land forever, right? But no, that was not their mindset. Their mindset was one of being a pilgrim, right? And that is the mindset we have to have today. Like if you think of the Canaan, they had so much possession, but yet still they were looking for a better country. And I think that is the mindset we need to have. Yes, we can own a house, we can own a land property, but we have to, I love what somebody brought out. And you said it, we're just stewards. The land doesn't belong to us.
Yeah.
We're just taking care of the land, and we're looking for a better country. This is what the patriarchs, this was their mindset.
Yeah, just like Adam and Eve they were caretakers. They were there to take care of the land, so we are to take care of things. So also with this, like, how do you think Adam and Eve felt when they were thrown out, or when how the Israelites felt when they were taken captive and taken out of their promised land? Yeah, and I mean, have we ever in the same way, like, how does it feel if we get like demoted, or we have to, something goes wrong in our lives where we have to like step down, or go into a worse position than we were before? Like, how does that feel? Yeah.
That can work two ways. They can either make you feel sorry for yourself,
Right.
start moving, or it can draw you closer to God.
Right.
And the captivity worked both ways for the children of Israel. It drew a lot of them closer to God.
Mm-hmm.
And they held fast to, like Daniel and his three brothers, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. They held fast to their beliefs, to the health message. They didn't want to defile their bodies. They held fast to God
So does that mean it's like captivity is good, that people should be in captivity?
Adversity will do that. It will bring you nearer
Right.
to the Lord.
Yeah, God can use those situations, but is that, I mean, would it be better if we're just in captivity because that draws us near to God? Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right.
There's always persecution.
Yeah.
It's always.
Well, and
If you're going to, if you're really going to draw nearer to God, usually it's going to happen through persecution.
Mitch Hudson.
I want to touch on what Brother Bob said. I found it interesting from the time of Abraham. He was the first generation. He had to separate from those ones he loved, from the land that he was grew up in, and leave. And they were moving and traveling the whole time. They never possessed anything. It was a steady moving. And I love what it says in Joshua 24:31. The whole time they were moving, and God is working with them. Notice what it says, Joshua 24:31. And Israel served the Lord all the days of Joshua, and all the days of the elders that outlived Joshua. Why? And which had known all the works the Lord had done for Israel. As they were moving, never settled down, as they were moving, fighting, conquering, they served the Lord with all their heart. They come into the promised land, he divides the land up among them, and notice the first thing it says in Judges 2, verse 10. And also, that generation gathered unto the fall. That's Joshua and all those who served the Lord. And there arose another generation after them, which knew not the Lord, nor the works which he had done. And then verse 11 says, and the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord. As soon as they got a possession, they called it my house, my home, my 30 acres. This is what I've got. This is what I fought for. This is what I worked hard to get. They settled down, and you'll notice the first thing they did, what was the promise? For them to conquer the land, what did they have to do?
Chase out the.
They had to drive out the enemies.
Yeah.
And notice in Judges 1:21, Benjamin did not drive out the Jebusites. Verse 27, neither did Manasseh drive out. They got in, they got the little home, they got wall-to-wall carpet, they got 2 cars, got TV, they got remote controls, settled right down.
Yeah.
They settled down. And the Lord could not work with them, and they didn't really, they were happy.
Could someone read Luke chapter 14, verse 8 to 11? Luke chapter 14, verse 8 to 11. Yeah, Michael.
And he answered and said to him, let it alone, sir, for this year or 2, until I dig around it and put in manure. And if it bears fruit,
Luke,
13,
Luke 14.
I was on 13.
All right, 8 to 11.
And this is the NASB.
Yeah.
When you are invited by someone to a wedding feast, do not recline in the place of honor. Please someone more highly regarded than you be invited by him. And he who invited you both will come and say to you, give your place to this man. And then in shame you proceed to occupy the last place. But when you are invited, go and recline at the last place, so that when the one who has invited you comes, he may say to you, friend, move up higher. Then you will have honor in the sight of all who recline at the table with you. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted.
So that's describing someone who, like if we get too comfortable, if we get like thinking too much of think too highly of ourselves, then that's when we are at risk of being demoted, like, or put down to a worse position, or put outside of the borders. Whereas on the other side, if we think of ourselves more humbly, like Moses was, the meekest person on earth, right? He was very humble. Joshua was very humble, even though he was a warrior. I mean, he was really listened to Moses, listened to, he was really seeking God's will, and then God worked mightily through them. And so it's talking about that, like how thinking humbly about ourselves leads to the promise, like for God's promises to be fulfilled in our lives, whereas getting too comfortable, thinking too highly of ourselves, then that's when we're at risk of falling. Yeah. Let's read. Well, yeah, go ahead.
Did you say it was 400 years and 17 generations?
Around 16 generations.
16 generations.
Mm-hmm.
Who here is there anybody here 4 generations Advent?
4.
3? 2? 1? You're the first generation done? Just look at your own family life. That first generation makes a commitment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a painful. Abraham doesn't leave the ones he loved, everything. Everyone in here is the first generation knows what that's all about. When you look at your children that come into the second generation. They don't make the commitment, they don't have to make the choices and commitment the first generation does. Because the movement's got a little bit accepted, you got a little more finances or whatever. That third generation don't make any sacrifice really to be in the movement. They born into it, they come up eating veggie links, they go to church every Sabbath, they have popcorn on Saturday night after the sun goes down and watch the favorite movie. That fourth generation, it just comes into a full-blown flower, you know what I mean? He makes no commitment. And if you look at that in your own family, I'm looking at mine, I got 3 generations, and I see it. We all want something better for our children than what we had. We think we've got to give them more than what we had. And this 4th generation, 5th generation Adventists now are just in trouble. We're in trouble. As you look at it. And I believe very soon God's going to take things in his own hand. And you talking about persecution, you talking about sacrificing. Somebody's going to have to do something over in this thing.
Yeah, everyone wants to give something better to their children, right? But
Yes.
the problem is, I think we get mixed up with what's something better. Like, is it more comfort? Like,
Toys.
I mean,
Yes.
when it comes to machinery, like, they always make something more comfortable. Tractors, initially they were pretty bumpy and uncomfortable. It's all like a metal seat, no padding at all. And then tractors become more and more comfortable.
They got air conditioning.
Right.
Stereos now.
Yeah. So, or is it character like that? Do you seek to pass on character to your children? Yeah, Michael.
I've heard that a lot, and I agree. You mentioned a way of like, oh, we have to do something like to hurry the coming of the Lord. In my mind, like just like Jesus was slain from the foundations of the world, it's not like God didn't see all this coming. It's not like anything is going different than he thought it would.
Amen.
Because he knew before, what was going to take place, what we were going to choose, and everything like that. Now that does not mean we don't have work to do, but I don't think the day of the Lord coming has changed him. He's got the day in his mind. He knows when he'll be back. He knows his return. He knows when his people will be ready, just like he knew when the world was ready for Jesus to come and minister and be slain for us. That's it.
Yeah. I'd like for us to read Hebrews 6, verse 11 to 15. And it's talking about how the patriarchs were promised, they had promises of Abraham had promises of the promised land. And then in Hebrews 6, verse 11 to 15. And the question is, what do you think it means to us as Adventists to live as heirs of the promises? Hebrews 6, verse 11 to 15.
And we desire that every one of you do show the same of hope unto the end, that ye be not slothful, but followers of them who through faith and patience inherit the promises. For when God made promise to Abraham, because he could swear by no greater, he sware by himself, saying, Surely blessing I will bless thee, and multiplying I will multiply thee. And so after he had patiently endured, he obtained the promise.
All right, so what stands out to you in those verses?
Patiently endured.
Yeah?
I like that. I like those words.
It said, "Be not slothful," was something that stood out to me. Like, I mean, and Abraham. I mean, he was not slothful. Like, they did not, like you said, they didn't settle down. Like, he didn't settle down. He didn't build himself a big house and get all comfortable. He was on a journey. Like, he was in tents. They stayed in tents, and he was busy training his household. I mean, they had Abraham has a household of 1,000 people. Like, and they were very. And they were busy getting ready too. I mean, Abraham, when Lot was captive, he'd already got an army ready. I mean, Abraham, yeah. So, mm-hmm.
How did he obtain it? He had to fulfill some sort of condition, didn't he? What was that condition? The condition is that when Abraham left, when God called Abraham out, he said, go into a far country. He said, go move away from my what? Kindred, right? So he had to move away from his kindred, but who left with him? Lot did. So Lot stayed with him. Was the promise fulfilled while Lot was with him?
No.
Not one bit. It wasn't until God allowed both of them to have contention that when Abraham said, if you turn to the right, I'll go to the left, and you go to the left, I'll go to the right. And then Lot finally said, I'm going to go down here to the cities of the plain. And Abraham went the other way. What happened after that when God finally came to him? He says, now I promise you again that I'm going to fulfill. And did that promise get fulfilled? Yes. Why? Because he says, it counted it unto him for righteousness because Abraham believed him. And it was then fulfilled after Lot walked out.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until that happened that promise was not fulfilled. What happened not long after? What happened? You had Hagar, right? Not long after that, then you had what? He had Isaac. But it wasn't until Lot was gone. So we have to understand that he obtained that promise only by fulfilling those conditions.
All right, going on. The lesson talks about the land as a gift. And I'd like to read a few verses there. Someone could read Leviticus 20, verse 22, and then chapter 25, verse 23, and then Psalms 24, 1. And it's about a relationship between God, Israel, and the Promised Land. Yeah.
You shall therefore keep all my statutes and all my judgments and do them, so that the land to which I am bringing you to inhabit will not vomit flesh.
Yeah.
They said that they used to use lukewarm water to produce vomit effect. So I speak out of my mouth as though it was all.
Yeah, I mean, that makes me think of how, there are natural consequences to things. And it's like God describing to them that just things will happen if you don't. It's not that I'm a bad God, but it's just like if you don't follow, like I'm outlining how you can stay there, how you can have a good life, but if you don't follow that, bad things are going to happen. The land's going to vomit you out. Well, if they don't take care of the land, if they don't, if they just came in there and didn't till it, didn't grow anything, they just sat down, they wouldn't have any food, they would starve, they would die, right? But they had something to do there. And the same if they didn't they had enemies as well. There were people around as well. If they, people, if people see someone's doing things wrong, they. A lot of wars happen because some people think other people are doing something wrong, and so they're like, we have to step in and do something about this, right? Yeah, so, all right, and then chapter 25, verse 23. Leviticus 25:23.
The land shall not be sold forever, for the land is mine, for ye are strangers and sojourners with me.
All right. So the emphasis is that God owns the land. It's ultimately God's. He's the one who owns it.
You know, I like what it says there. You are strangers and sojourners with me.
Uh-huh.
I really like that. That means that, hey, I have a better place for you. And as long as you abide with me, follow me, I'm going to lead you there.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
It's exactly what we should be doing. We're strangers and sojourners with Christ.
Mm-hmm. And the last verse of Psalm 24, verse 1.
The earth is the Lord's, the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein.
All right. So God's the owner. We're sojourners. And then we have something to do in that land too. So first thing when I was reading through this, I was like, oh, obedience is like the rent to stay there, right? If you don't pay the rent, you get kicked out. But there's deficiencies with everything you like and something too, and it's like we can, what do we think of ourselves as being on this earth? There are lessons to learn from different, like, do we think of ourselves as guests, as children, as renters, as workers, as caretakers, ambassadors? Those are just some things we can think of ourselves as. And, how does it, how does that affect our stay? How does that affect how we are and what we do? Like how we think of ourselves. If we think of ourselves as guests, a lot of times if a guest comes somewhere, they don't really do much. They just come and enjoy the benefits, and then they leave. And so there are deficiencies there, but there are also good things to learn from that. We see something, as a guest going to a place, we can see, we can admire, we can learn, we can spend time together. You have more time, you can enjoy your time together more as a guest than, something else. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes. All those verses we just read, Luke, Psalms, it's not talking about the world. It is talking about us, right? God's people who are looking, to be part of this promise. And the question to ask is why is land? Why is it that most of you actually made reference to it about the wars. Most of the wars in the past and right now, it's over land.
Yeah.
Right? If you think about Palestine, Israel, Israel and Palestine, Ukraine, Russia, and the Ukraine, all of these wars that are being fought. it's over land. So why is it that land is so emotive? Why is it that it causes so much conflict? It's because the land, it has resources. It has, some of these lands have holy sites. So people are warring over the right to worship at a certain place. People are warring for the sovereignty, right? Or the identity. You think about China and Taiwan. But for us as God's people, when we occupy the land, it has to be occupied by faith. And I want to read this for us because in Hebrews 11, 9 and 10, right? And I'm referring back to Abraham. It says, by faith, he, Abraham, dwelt in the land of promise as in a foreign country, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he waited for the city which has foundation, whose builders and maker is God. And so, if we do not have this mindset, if we have a mindset that, you know what, I'm just going to think of my abode, my property or wherever you're living, this is mine, then we are not thinking how Abraham was thinking.
Right.
It has to be land acquisition by faith.
And what I like to think like the most is like how it describes Adam and Eve as caretakers of the Garden of Eden, and then how Jesus with his disciples sends them out as ambassadors of him. Like if think of ourselves as caretakers or ambassadors, that I think to me gives the best best reason for us being here, and the best description of what we are to do here. Because also like children, it's important to think of ourselves as children, like God calls us his children, but it's easy to settle into that, like you were saying, like with the generations, it's easier to just become more comfortable as a child. A lot of times children aren't required to do so much to take care of things.
I like what I said, I think it's John 8:56, Jesus told the Israelites that Abraham saw his day and rejoiced. And if you go back to when Abraham was fixing to offer his son, and he didn't, and he stopped, he found that ram in the brush there. The testimony of Jesus says that when Abraham sacrificed that offering, he by faith saw Christ on the cross. That's what you call living in the presence of God. I like what it says about Moses. He endured because he saw him who was invisible. And I think we don't, wait a minute, I don't have that all the time because I'm not seeing him who is invisible all the time. I allow the world to eclipse that view, you know what I mean? Or my chase after whatever I'm after. But those in Hebrews 13, they didn't lose sight of the reason why they was on this earth. They knew they had a better home. They all of them seen miracles unbelievable, in Hebrews 11, and that kept them going.
I thought the lesson brought out something quite interesting too about when the Israelites were in Egypt. Everything like gardens, everything they planted, it was supplied by the Nile, like water from the Nile, which was a steady flow of water for the most part. But when they came into the land of promise, much of their water supply was from rain, and so they had to depend. And it brought out how they had to depend more on God. Like the rain was not as constant as the river of Nile was, and just like lessons we can learn from that, like slavery versus freedom. Like in slavery, there's a constant supply of things, and they didn't have to, in a way, as long as they did their job, they didn't have to worry so much about the supply. But in a land of freedom, there were, more worries, or there were things they had to, like they really had to depend on God and learn to depend on Him more fully. Um,
Also realize too, that the foundational work had to also be done. How and why did Egypt flourish so well?
mhm.
You have to remember, before the 430 years of slavery, who made the canals? Who helped build all that stuff during those time periods? It was Joseph.
That's God.
It was God, but it was also God leading Joseph.
Yeah.
Because if you look at even to today, if you look at the Nile, it's splintered off in like almost 100 different little canals here and there before it hits the ocean. But that very same thing is why it got so flourishing, because God led Joseph and put him in a position that it would be a testimony and a testament for thousands of years after his death. Why? Because God wanted us to see that through him all things are possible.
Yep. And so I guess what I want to bring out with that, it was like in a way, like mentally, it was easier to be a slave than it was to be free, right? But God doesn't always want us to just have the easy way. He wants us to grow and to learn and to, develop more. Yeah.
Since you have only a few minutes left, you made a very good point there about it being a little bit harder. Even the challenge of the land,
Yeah.
right? God promised them, normally, let me just ask it, normally a promise, a gift is free normally, right?
Mhm.
So why is it that the gift that God gifted them with the land, why wasn't it free? Because they're getting it for free, but Brother Mitch alluded to something, they had to do something.
Mhm.
So God wanted them to kind of participate in a like a holy war, right? Because God saw that if they were to just go into that land without doing nothing, it would have been destructive to their development.
Mhm.
So God said, you know what? You need to go and drive out those people. And in driving out those people, you're actually building up your faith in me. So I kind of look at it as a holy war that they had to fight. And there's relevance with it for us today, because when it comes to soul winning, he doesn't need us to win souls. And there is a war going on over souls. So why is it that we need to participate in soul winning? Why did they have to participate in driving out the people who occupied the land? It was for our own development, so that we could also occupy the heavenly Canaan.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, and the land was a gift from God for them, but they had to do something with it. For them to really experience that gift, they had to do something with it. Just like, you can give a tool to someone, but for them to really experience the benefit of the tool, they have to use it. If you could give food to someone, but or ingredients to someone, but for them to really enjoy those ingredients, they would have to cook with them. They would have to make something out of them. And the same way with like spiritual blessings, God gives us an example in Jesus, but unless we do something with that, unless we apply it in our lives, we don't experience the blessings of it. Yeah.
Have you heard the old saying, give a man a fish and he'll eat for a day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Teach him to fish and he'll have food for the rest of his life.
yeah,
And you also have to realize too that God is also, He doesn't leave you hanging. If He gives you the tool, He's going to give you instruction on how to use that tool.
yeah,
And the power to do it.
Right. Because you don't just get ingredients and do a hodgepodge or whatever it's going to be, and it's going to taste terrible. Or you do it incorrectly. So God gave us a letter of instruction.
You know, the Lord told him, I think through Joshua, that, hey, you do what I tell you, I'll go before you when you start conquering the land. Remember that? He said, I'll lead the way, you just do what I tell you, and it'll be okay. But, you know, they didn't fulfill that. They never did. Never did.
You know, I think it's interesting that God didn't really ever really want them to fight for him.
No.
He was going to take it for them.
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
He just wanted them to show a little faith.
yeah,
That was it.
And it started the same way today.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot the same way.
yeah. Jericho, their part was to sing and to
Yeah.
sing and to shout for victory, and walls fell down.
Yeah.
Other places they went, the hailstones came.
Yeah.
You know. I'd like to close with a quote from in Friday's lesson. It says, "We shall be saved eternally when we enter in through the gates into the city.
Yes.
Then we may rejoice that we are saved, eternally saved. But until then, we need to heed the injunction of the apostle and to fear lest the promise being left us of entering into his rest, any of us should seem to come short of it. Having a knowledge of Canaan, singing the songs of Canaan, rejoicing in the prospect of entering into Canaan, did not bring the children of Israel into the vineyards and olive groves of the promised land. They could make it theirs in truth only by occupation, by complying with the conditions, by exercising a living faith in God, by appropriating his promises to themselves." In the Bible, the inheritance of the saved is called a country. It's Hebrews 11. There, the heavenly shepherd leads his flock to fountains of living waters. The tree of life yields its fruit every month, and the leaves of the tree are for the service of the nations. There are ever-flowing streams, clear as crystal, and beside them waving trees cast their shadows upon the paths prepared for the ransomed of the Lord. There the wide-spreading plains swell into hills of beauty, and the mountains of God rear their lofty summits. On those peaceful plains, beside those living streams, God's people, so long pilgrims and wanderers, shall find a home.